The way I like to talk about purpose would be that purpose is an honest intention to lead positive change. What does a brand believe at its core? What does that brand intend to do with that belief? What is that brand doing on the day-to-day to live that purpose in the real world or internally or externally, or how is it showing up to its stakeholders? So it's kind of that brand belief and then the intention and then the action.
In today's world, how does a brand break through the noise and become iconic? Well, there's a complex marketing machine running behind all your favorite brand names that goes deeper than you could ever imagine. Join me, Jason Harris, co-founder and CEO of award-winning creative agency Mechanism, as I speak with leading experts about how to build an iconic brand. We'll pull back the curtain on how culturally relevant brand building and always-on digital work together to make brands famous and drive business results. Think of it as EQ meeting IQ. So let's fast forward our marketing minds on the Soul and Science podcast. All companies have a purpose. For most, it's turning a profit and increasing overall value. However, today's definition of value is changing. More and more customers are looking for brands that take social responsibility seriously and offer a mission that goes beyond profits. Today, I'm sitting down with a very, very special guest, my wife, Lindsay Harris. And we're going to talk about what it means to be a purpose-driven brand today. Lindsay is the Chief Purpose Officer at Tombras, an impact-driven creative agency that has created campaigns for FritoLay, ESPN, Samsung, and many other iconic brands. Before she was at Tombras, Lindsay was the editor for Campaign Magazine and a reporter for Ad Age. She also leads the agency's relationship with the Tombras School of Advertising and PR at the University of Tennessee, which is focused on diversifying the next generation of industry talent. In today's episode, you'll learn the difference between leading with mission and virtue signaling. You'll also learn how marketing is changing to focus on more purpose-driven work. And you'll learn how a simple awareness campaign gained the attention of NBA players. All right, let's dive right in with Lindsay. All right, welcome to the Soul and Science podcast. This is an interesting one. I am joined by my wife, Lindsay Harris. We got married in Jamaica June of last year, and she is in the biz, and we thought it'd be fun to have her on the podcast. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thanks. Yeah, it's crazy. I used to be interviewing you and all other industry execs, and now you're interviewing me. It's kind of crazy.
Tables have turned, my friend. Give me the Lindsay Harris origin story for our listeners. Were you always in love with marketing and advertising, or did you fall into it?
Yeah, no, unlike you with your Kool-Aid man story, I was not always in love with advertising and marketing. I was raised in Hackettstown, New Jersey. So while I wasn't always in love with marketing and advertising, the fun fact about Hackettstown is that it's actually home to one of the original Mars chocolate factories. It's been making M&Ms and other chocolate treats since 1958. So any industry execs or agency execs who've worked on Mars have probably visited my hometown if they've worked on M&Ms in the past. The factory is actually 2 miles from where I grew up. My parents still live there. It used to smell like chocolate all the time. There's a lot of M&M pride in Hackettstown. When you drive through Hackettstown, on the Hackettstown signs, there's M&Ms on the actual signs. So yeah, that's just a little fun fact.
Do you still like M&Ms, or are you sick of the smell of M&Ms?
Well, I love them. And as you know, we always have them in the house.
And how did you get into advertising then?
So I went to Syracuse. I studied magazine journalism at Syracuse. When I graduated, I started covering sports, local sports in New Jersey. So I was covering youth sports, high school, middle school. And then after that, I wanted to make the jump from living in New Jersey to New York City. So I wound up meeting Jonah Bloom, who used to be an editor at PR Week and Ad Age. And he told me about this job opening at PR Week for a reporter who was going to cover the CMO section. So I decided to apply to it, and then wound up being at PR Week for about 5 years, covering PR, but also marketing, which was why it was kind of a seamless jump from PR Week to Ad Age. And then when I went to Ad Age, covered creativity and media agencies, and then went over to Campaign to be the US editor.
So when someone goes to journalism school, is the idea that you're not sure what industry you want to cover and it's just that you want to be a writer and a reporter? Or do you have an idea when you go to school, like what industry you might want to do?
I mean, I don't know how it is for everyone. Syracuse has very specific tracks. So it'll be like newspaper, broadcast, magazine, and et cetera, et cetera. So I picked specifically magazines. At that time, magazines were huge and everyone was buying magazines and, thought print would live forever, et cetera. So,
And when you sort of get your first job, it's in sports, then you go into creativity and more. And then were you at that point, this is the industry that I love and I want to stay in this industry?
it took some time. I remember seeing words like RFP and AOR, and I was like, what the F are all of these letters? What's going on?
Agency of record, request for proposal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what really got me into the industry was doing the CMO interviews. So I got to interview the CMO of the NHL or Major League Baseball or NBA. So I was still covering sports in a different way.
Yeah.
And then I did more crisis comms coverage, which was just really fascinating to see, how companies handle different types of crises. So it was like a little slow burn, but I wound up really falling in love with the industry.
Your current job now is at Tombras, and it's a large independent agency. Is it much different reporting and covering the industry than actually working in it?
It is very different, but I love both. I feel like I learn something new every day, and I also was learning something new every day as a journalist. I really love the work I'm doing at Tombras, but yes, it is. It's very different. I didn't realize how much work goes into a campaign or a launch when you're covering it. It's like easy in a way to write the story about the launch, but then to be behind the scenes and see how much actual work and how many teams work on a piece, it's really incredible.
What do you think the best thing about being in the advertising industry is?
I think it's seeing the work come to life. I mean, you can have a brief and an idea, and that idea can change and shift so many times over months, and then actually seeing it come out into the world and seeing people react to it. Like the Special Olympics work that we just did, that was a really long process where it was like 8 months for that to come to life, and then actually seeing it in the real world. And yeah, it's really amazing. So I think that's my favorite part.
What do you think the hardest part about being in advertising is?
I think it's kind of similar to a lot of industries. It's just making sure people are happy, right? Making sure your clients are happy, making sure the teams are happy and everyone is playing nice in the sandbox. And, advertising is also a grind, like making sure you're winning accounts and keeping your business. So
all gas and no break. That is
right.
How I'd classify advertising industry.
Right.
What is an ability you have that you're very confident in advertising? Like, for example, some people are amazing at selling ideas, or some people know exactly how to bring an idea to life. What do you think your particular skill is?
I don't know if it's a skill necessarily. I think something I see is the potential of an idea or a campaign, right? So especially with World Vasectomy Day, right? It's a small nonprofit. I think not everyone at first was seeing the potential of what this campaign could be and why it was important. So I think I see potential and I also push for it to come to life. And across the board, whether it's work or my personal life, I'm very passionate about what I do. So I try to infuse all the teams with that passion because, I just feel like if you're living and working and you're not being passionate about it, you're just not really living or working at all. So
your superpower is passion.
Yeah, I guess I would say that.
Your current job is Chief Purpose Officer at Tombras. Can you tell me what a Chief Purpose Officer does?
So it could vary from agency and brand because it's, the title's getting a little more popular now. I can tell you what I do at Tombras. I work across disciplines to ensure that purpose is a core part of things like our client strategy and our campaigns, from creative and media activations to brand thinking and communications. Specifically for Tombras, what makes my role really unique is that I lead our relationship with the Tombras School of Advertising and Public Relations at the University of Tennessee. The reason why that is so important is because we are really focused on diversifying the next generation of talent and making tangible change to fix things around underrepresentation in the industry by starting at higher education. So our goal is to double the amount of BIPOC of advertising and PR students that enter the school and also graduate from the school. And we've seen really great success. It's just launched about 2 years ago. So right now, the diversity of the faculty alone at UT has grown from 29% to 53%. We have professors from all over the world. And then the freshman class of 2022 to 2023 was the most diverse class in the history of the University of Tennessee's advertising and PR program. We saw an increase in Black students that was 40%. We saw a 12.5% increase in Asian students, and we saw an 11% increase in multiracial students. So again, I work with, and as a chief purpose officer, I work with our clients and our nonprofit partners, but a big part of my role is also this Tombras School initiative, which I'm really proud of.
That's awesome. And you said there's a rise in the title, and I've seen this title not necessarily at agencies a lot, but I see them on the brands and companies. And I wonder if you have any insight on this. Do you think sometimes companies bring that title in to signal to maybe investors or consumers that they're doing something like good for social causes? And do you think they actually do those things? Obviously, it depends, but do you think it has real merit?
I mean, I can't speculate on a lot of what other brands are doing. I can say that I feel super fortunate to work at a company where we're really investing. We put money behind what we do in terms of purpose. And I would hope that brands are also doing that. I know that, the chief sustainability officer title is really popular at brands now. And they're doing things like operationalizing supply chains. So there's definitely some action being taken. So my hope would be that it's not just lip service and that it's actually a real role.
And, purpose has a lot of different definitions, right? There's like the purpose of a company. There's a brand purpose. There's purpose, which means you're doing social good in the world. There's purpose, which is working with purpose-based nonprofits. Then there's, for-profit companies that can do purpose initiatives. So there's a lot of ways to slice purpose. And my question is, which I will land, I swear, is when the economy goes down, inflation's up, right? Unemployment is up. Things cost more. Stockholders want better returns. The economy gets more difficult. It seems like when that happens, the purpose stuff gets much harder to sell into the for-profit brands. It can sometimes be the thing you were like, we'll kick that into next year because it seems like a nice to have, but not a need to have. Have you seen that or?
Yeah. I think you pretty much said everything already.
Good. I guess then my question would be, how is the best way to sell purpose-driven work to brands?
Okay, so the way I like to talk about purpose would be that purpose is an honest intention to lead positive change. So to me, it's a combination of a brand's societal role with its core benefit or its service offering to consumers. And it's not, or it shouldn't be something that's tacked on or added on. It should be
an honest intention to drive societal
an honest intention to lead positive change.
Positive change. Okay. That's clear. I like that.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's not something that should be tacked on or a division of an organization. It should be built into the overall business strategy. So it helps guide prioritization and innovation and creativity and to create value overall for all stakeholders. And an interesting way to think of it is that you start with a brand belief. So what does a brand believe at its core? And then from there, what does that brand intend to do with that belief? So is there a cause or a need it's looking to fill? And then after that, it's what is that brand doing on the day-to-day to live that purpose in the real world or internally or externally, or how is it showing up to its stakeholders? So it's kind of that brand belief and then the intention and then the action.
And do you think that brand belief, when you look at a company and you might say, I know that this company's published their values or what they believe in, that is a way to make it honest and make it part of their DNA. So they're not trying to like bandwagon hop onto whatever people are talking about at the moment. It has to be like real and authentic and inherent to the brand, whatever they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, you can publish your values or your mission statement, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can't jump on a cultural moment. It really just depends on what your values are. And where you have permission to play in.
Give me one or two examples of the best purpose work you've worked on in your career that you're most proud of.
I mean, most recently, absolutely would be the Special Olympics. I'm super proud of that work, and we are extending that campaign that just launched into this year. So it'll be a global activation launching around springtime this year. So what that was the word special sometimes has a derogatory connotation. Around like 72% of US Americans have said that they've used it in a negative way. But when it comes to sports, you hear so many sports announcers and ESPN announcers saying, oh, like, that player is special, that team is special. So it's often used to describe these once in a lifetime extraordinary moments in sports. So we wanted to bridge that gap, so why are Special Olympics athletes not seen in that light, right? So we redefined the word special with an actual definition on the back of a sweatshirt and the word special on the front. And we worked with two Special Olympics athletes, Maddie and Joshua, and like used these huge billboards in Times Square to put up images of them. Maddie is 4'6", and she could power lift 1.5 times her body weight. So just incredible. So we had these images that are like, deadlifting 1.5 times my body weight. That's special. Things like that. Or Joshua has run 17 triathlons and he's 17 years old. So 17 triathlons before the age of 18. And he almost wins every single one. He is an incredible athlete. So working with these athletes was just really amazing. And then we didn't really even anticipate how much this would take off, but we had NBA All-Star Damian Lillard wear the sweatshirt to the game versus the Heat. He's on the Milwaukee Bucks for free because he loved the sweatshirt and he loves the Special Olympics. And then we had a bunch of Houston Texans wear it.
So that's a great example of like, you're not doing a campaign for Special Olympics. You're doing an idea to redefine what the word special means in culture. So it's much bigger kind of swing than just doing like a 2-month campaign for Special Olympics. It's a much bigger concept, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose is like, it's a label that we all should want to wear. So when I wear my special sweatshirt, it's like, like, fuck yeah, I am special. I'm sorry for cursing. F yeah, I am special.
You can curse on this podcast.
Oh, great. So, it's a label that we want to wear, not something that's like, oh, Special Olympics, I'm not going to wear the word special because it might have a negative connotation to it. But it's like, yeah, I am special and here's why.
I love that. That's such a great idea. Do you have an example of maybe something you didn't work on or your team didn't work on of a brand doing a great purpose-driven campaign?
Yeah. So this is one of my favorites and it's pretty recent. It's from Lacoste. It launched in 2022. They worked with Theo Curran, who is a quadruple amputee and a Paralympian, to create a adaptive clothing line. Wow. And they not only created it with Theo, but they actually named it after him. So it's called the Theo Curran Collection. And I just think it's incredible. The clothes look really cool, but it's also adaptive clothing. And it just really focuses on that representation issue. So I absolutely love that. And they actually are extending it this year, and they're going to be giving some of the profits to 3 athletes in, I believe it's Europe, North America, and Brazil. And these 3 athletes in particular have really, really like special stories and incredible stories. So they'll be extending that line. But I just love the fact that they created a line of clothing. So like I said, just having that representation for other people who are Paralympians or other people who have physical differences to be able to see that, I just think is amazing.
Do you think a lot of brands in the purpose space might bite off more than they can chew when it comes to purpose? Like trying to be everything to everyone, and then their values or their company mission gets diluted because they're just trying to show the world that they're a good brand?
Yeah, I think that could happen. I think the ones that stand out are the ones that have a very clear, like the Patagonias of the world, for example, who have like a very, very clear brand purpose. But also brand purpose doesn't necessarily mean, you have to like save the world, or it could be what is your brand's purpose or what's your brand's platform. So your purpose might be to, create joy. Like I think M&M's is something like using fun to create a place in the world where everyone feels like they could belong. It's something like that. So I don't necessarily think your brand purpose has to be like save the planet or save the whales or gun reform. Like it can be what your brand stands for. Like with Moonpie, for example, it's one of our clients. The platform is out of this world. So we have the permission to play in outer space. We could do anything relevant around outer space, whether it's the moon or the sun or stars, the eclipse or aliens. So we just have permission to be a little bit fun and quirky and weird with space.
But that's not purpose in terms of social good, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's two types of purpose. So there's like your values, and then there's also like what is your purpose as a brand. And sometimes they can intertwine though. So sometimes they can be the same or they can really mingle, and sometimes they don't.
But do you think the chief purpose officer title is typically trying to do good in the world?
Yeah, I think it's probably like from what I've seen, it's more focused on how can this brand help, whether it's around DE&I or corporate social responsibility, things like that, more cause focused.
Do you see that gaining traction? Do you think there's going to be more chief purpose officers in agencies and in brands?
Yeah, I do. And then the title might change. I know there's social impact is a big title everyone's talking about. And like I mentioned, sustainability. So you'll continue seeing it. Whether or not the title changes is to be seen.
What brands would you love to work with? What would be like a dream brand for you?
Until this podcast, I've never really had a dream client. But after talking to M&M so much, I'm kind of thinking that would be just really full circle and awesome. And especially because I know they're all about inclusion.
You could reach out to them and like play the hometown card.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, aside from that, I just really want to work with brands that are willing to, take some risks and to try to make an impact in the world and make a difference. Brands actually want to make a meaningful difference, and kind of like how Tombras is really investing in this space. So brands that are willing to also make an investment in it and really want to do good, because you see a lot in nonprofits, obviously, but in the brand side, I'd love to work with brands who really want to invest more.
When you're doing your work, do you have a quote that you think about or that runs in your head?
There's a quote I really love by Marilyn Monroe that I think can be relevant, whether it's your personal life or your work life.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Not that one. It is, most importantly, keep smiling, because life is a beautiful thing and there's so much to smile about. And I know there are certain days, even at work, where it can be hard to want to smile sometimes because you're really frustrated with a meeting or a client or, whatever is going on. But I just think that quote is something anyone could hold on to, because with all of life's ups and downs, whether it's work or your personal life, there's just a lot of beauty in the world. So can't take it for granted.
Yeah. And I definitely think being married to me, there's a lot of downs. So you really need to make sure you keep that quote in mind. All right. Inspo of the week time. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. We are going to take things that are ripped from the headlines that are inspiring us this week. And so I'll go first. One thing that, I love the NFL. We watch a lot of football. And, I love, unfortunately, the New York Jets. But I love the playoffs in particular, which are starting. And there was a Kansas City Chiefs campaign, which launched, where they used actors from Hallmark movies. Lily from my team actually pointed it out to me, and I watched it and I really liked it. But they used Hallmark movie stars, and they cut kind of a short film that was, a fake trailer about falling for football, rom-com of someone who was about to get married but left on the altar because her fiance had to go watch the playoffs. And then she falls in love with a Kansas City merchandise sales owner who loves the playoffs, favorite time of year. And can that relationship work out? And, hilarity ensues. I thought that was perfectly timed heading into the playoffs, which the Chiefs are part of, to sell more Chiefs merchandise, but also to create a little fun content around this time of year. That's my inspired work of the week. I thought it was quite clever. What's yours inspired work of the week?
Well, that's really cute. I love a little Travis and T Swift moment. So I saw this news story that said there's a rail worker who saved 29 people since 2015 from taking their own life. And he does so by identifying vulnerable people who are on the platform and talking to them. So I just think that's amazing. He said that a woman even recently who he had talked out of jumping came back to the station and gave him a huge hug and said, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And that just really made my week, because it just shows you that you never know what someone's going through, and just taking that extra few minutes to have that humanity and connection is just really incredible and can even save someone's life.
Well, you sure made my falling for football inspiration idea look stupid. So thank you for that. All right. Well, okay. One-upping me as usual. All right. And now we're going into one lesson. This is something that you recently learned that you want to share with our audience. And do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Are you scared to go first?
I'm scared to go first now.
Mine's not super crazy. It's just I read this article in Ad Age. It was a study saying that millennials are demanding an active role in health, and they're really helping the health industry innovate. So they're dubbing it now the superhuman era. And I just thought that was really cool.
Superhuman era.
Yeah.
I like that. Mine's a little more basic than superhuman. We had a big pitch this week. It reminded me, for any job, any role in advertising or marketing, when you have a big meeting or a big board meeting or a big something, the power of rehearsing. And I think sometimes we forget about that, and we're so trying to nitpick whatever the presentation is down to the last minute and then go in there. And the power of rehearsing when you have something big coming up is very, very important, because when you do that, it's not just about knowing everything, having it memorized, although that helps. I think what that muscle does, the power of rehearsing, is creates confidence. And when you're confident, you can kind of do anything. And so I think the power of rehearsing isn't just for the act of rehearsing. It is for the act of calming your nerves, creating confidence, and you're going to have a kind of outsized impact or opportunity to get whatever you want, to do that persuasion of what you're trying to accomplish. So my lesson is remembering the power of rehearsing. All right. And the final section here is what we like to call a double dog dare. And we are going to ask the audience to try something or reconsider, or a tactic or a strategy as they head into their week. So I'll go first because yours is probably better than mine. But since we're talking about purpose, I think it's a good time towards the beginning of the year, when you're sort of hit restart and maybe you've had a couple weeks off, to relook at, for a company, to relook at your values and really reevaluate if those values, you're going to be consistent. Do you want to change any of them? Are you going to carry them into the new year? Are they still serving you? And I think for people, your personal values, I think to reevaluate those and make sure either recommit to them or adjust as needed. As brands and people, we're constantly changing. We're always in flux. So I think it's a good time of year to, I double dog dare you to reevaluate and relook and recommit to your values. What is your double dog dare, Lindsay?
I like that. I actually think mine kind of works really nicely with yours. So it's something I've been trying myself since taking a course at the New York Zen Center. So my dare is to replace negative self-talk or negative thoughts with something like a song or a memory or just a thought that makes you smile. Because, when you have those negative thoughts, doesn't mean you have to dwell on them. So just dismiss that negativity by replacing it with another thought.
And so when you see those thoughts creep in that aren't serving you, have something that you immediately respond to, almost have that become habitual.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I like that. There's a great Bruce Lee quote that I was actually just reading. He said this once: "Don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy and cast spells. That's why it's called spelling." I don't know about that part. Change the way you speak about yourself and you can change your life. I think that's kind of what you're saying. Yeah. Even as a joke, don't be negative. Don't be hard on yourself, because your mind and body can't tell the difference between a joke. And it creates neural pathways that you kind of have to unwind.
Yeah, like why put that negativity out in the universe, right?
That's right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. You're fantastic. You're awesome. I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks for spending the time with us. And our audience will learn a lot from you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to Soul and Science, and we'll see you next week. Soul and Science is a Mechanism podcast produced by Maggie Bowles, Brian Tillotson, Grace Robert, and Lily Jablonski. The show is edited by Daniel Ferreira, with theme music by Kyle Merritt. And I'm your host, Jason Harris. At Mechanism, we build iconic brands with soul and science. The soul is culturally relevant brand building, and the science is the always-on marketing activities that drive the bottom line. Learn more at mechanism.com.